Hi, and welcome to Gigging Out, a podcast about the people and businesses leading the gig economy. I'm Dana Gagnon, CMO at Every, and in this episode, I interview Steve Wright, CEO and founder of rideshare company Wridz. We talk about what differentiates his company from the rideshare giants, including Wrights' approach to safety and their unique subscription model for drivers, where they get to keep their entire fare. Steve talks about his decision to bootstrap the company and how they're growing at a sustainable pace by constantly listening to drivers and being thoughtful about which markets to open up. He also shares what it was like when Stephen Colbert poked fun at the company name on national television. I had a blast talking with Steve. I know you'll love this episode.
Steve, thank you so much for being here today on Gigging Out.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
Of course. So I would love, tell me the origin story of Wridz.
Well, it goes back to, I'll start at the beginning. We had a medical equipment company for 27 years in 14 locations. And decided back in 2017 it was time for a new challenge, and it seemed like the rideshare industry was getting a lot of press, mostly bad, a lot of disgruntled drivers, a lot of issues out there, a lot of safety concerns and everything. So at that time we decided, you know what, this was going to be our new passion, our new project, and it was going to be to build a better rideshare company that really takes the drivers and the passengers into consideration first, so that we can actually take care of them like they should be taken care of, and not just, a means to make money. And so we started in our research and development and everything sometime in 2017, went through a couple different apps that failed miserably. We didn't like them. Ended up hiring all of our own in-house programmers, and they've done an exceptionally good job for us. But yeah, we've designed this whole platform around safety and listening to the drivers to see what they need us to do to make it better for them.
Building a better rideshare, that's a big task. Can you talk about some of the ways that Wridz is unique?
Oh yeah, I love talking about that. Some of the main things were, initially, my daughter at the time was around 16 and found out that her mother was letting her go downtown Austin, Texas, and get into rideshare cars. And I'm thinking, okay, who's carting my 16-year-old daughter around? And she said, oh, sometimes you get in the car and close the door and you look in the mirror and think, uh-oh, I might have made a mistake here. I was like, well, that's not who I want driving my daughter around, or my wife, either of my daughters. So we started out with the aspect in mind of passenger safety, confirming drivers, making it, difficult to be imposter drivers or anything out there. And one of the first safety things we thought about was face-to-face interviews with every driver. I mean, that's a must. We have to confirm. You can easily go online and fake, documents and stuff and everything. And if nobody's actually looking at your license and everything to confirm it, then, you don't know 100% that you're getting the real thing. So we decided the face-to-face interviews. We decided that drug screening was a must, for, the big things that you wouldn't want somebody driving with. So we decided the face-to-face interviews and the drug screening. And then each driver is assigned a unique driver ID and a windshield placard with their ID on it and a QR code that actually is assigned to them. So as another precaution, if a passenger wasn't 100% sure that was their car, they can actually real quickly scan that QR code on the windshield placard, and it gives them a big green check mark or a red X. So just another, they don't have to do that, but a single person getting into a car, they might want to do that just to make sure. So that was one of the big things is confirming drivers. We also have something called the calling card, and it's on the driver phone and on the passenger phone, and it's a little color number combination on there. And as soon as you touch that, your whole screen becomes that. So it could be a red 22 or a yellow 41 or whatever, and it's a random number assigned to that trip, and it doesn't duplicate within a certain number of miles. And so at curbside, in fact, I ran into this in Las Vegas this last week. I just happened to walk through the TNC pickup area, and there's a sea of black sedans. And I was looking for a black sedan for the person I was traveling with, and I had no idea. And there weren't front license plates. I'm going, how am I going to find this person? Well, with our system, would have been perfect. I would have held up a yellow 22 or something. The driver would have held up theirs, and it's like a beacon. It shows you. That's another confirmation too. So that is very helpful as far as the safety goes. So, our interviews and the things that we put in place, all that information that's transmitted to the passenger app, that they can learn about their driver before they ever get there, the unique calling card, the driver code and everything. So that was kind of where we started, and we've kind of worked from there.
When you had the idea to do face-to-face interviews, I mean, were you told from people, oh, that'll never scale? Like, how have you approached that to make it a scalable thing to do for all the drivers you're recruiting?
Yeah, of course, that was a big pushback. But you know what we've learned? The best of the best is what we want. We're not trying to get all the drivers. We don't want all the drivers. There's probably a top, I don't want to, want to upset anybody, but the top 30 or 40% of all drivers is kind of our niche. We want the best of the best drivers. And we've learned that the drivers who are serious about this and really doing it for a living and are very interested in creating their own business using our software in their car, they are more than happy to come in and learn about the company and talk to us and do that face-to-face interview. And the ones that are less than happy to come in, there's probably a reason they don't want a face-to-face interview or, a drug test or whatever. And we're fine with that. That it's not for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good outlook. You mentioned they're owning their own business. So that's another differentiator for Wridz. Can you talk about your revenue model and how you work with drivers around their earnings and how that's different from some of the big rideshare companies out there?
Sure. In our research on what we needed to do different, and literally we learned everything we needed to build our company by listening to what we don't want to do. In other words, don't do this. So we built more off of don't do these than, oh, we should do it this way. And one of the biggest things was drivers losing so much of their money. The large companies started out, 20-25% of the fare, which is reasonable, but most people didn't realize that the booking fee was not part of the fare. So if it was a $5 trip and $2 came off from the booking fee, now the fare is actually $3, and then they're going to take 20 or 25% of that. Well, now in a lot of cases, drivers are coming in and showing us they're taking for the total amount the passenger pays. The other companies are taking up to 70%, 75% in some cases of every trip. So a passenger pays $20. There's cases drivers show us that they made $7 on a $20 trip, or even less. So we thought first thing we need to fix on that side is the pay, figure out a way to do the pay. So we decided to let the driver keep everything on the trip that a driver could keep. There's a few things they can't keep: the credit card processing fee, which it pays to the credit card company, the airport fee. Somebody's got to pay that. The passenger's paying that. It's getting collected on the app and actually sent to the airport. And some states have taxes and things like that. But everything the driver can make on the app, they get. Wridz keeps nothing. We don't keep a penny from the trip. We make nothing. We don't make any more money if a driver's driving than if he's on the couch watching the Flintstones and eating Fruit Loops. I mean, literally, we don't make any more money. It's kind of like, the Netflix of rideshare. I mean, I pay a Netflix subscription, and it's just up to me if I want to watch them or not. They got to give me good content because I'm their customer, and that's the same concept we look here. The driver's our customer. We have to create an app that they like and they want to pay that subscription on. But the drivers are finding out on the larger companies, they pay, if they're driving all day, they pay that $100 to the other company in the first 2-3 hours of the day. They've already paid that much. And then the company continues to take 50, 60, 70% for the rest of the day and the rest of the month. So they're learning real quick that our subscription fees are nominal compared to, what they're already paying into the other companies. So yeah, that's been one of the big things is changing the way the drivers get paid. And I think the ones that really get it. And they're creating their own business within their car. We've given them a tool now that just came out in the last month or two that is that QR code that's on their windshield placard is also downloadable, and they can actually create their own cards. So when somebody says, hey, how can I get you later? They can hand them one of those cards with a QR code. Well, later on when that passenger needs to make a trip, they put in all the trip details, scan the QR code, hit request, it goes right back to that driver. So yeah, so a driver can act literally, and for instance, in San Antonio, we have drivers down there who are just doing amazing things. They'll actually have somebody come into town for business convention and be there for the weekend. And they'll take that same passenger around 6, 7, 8 times over the weekend. And so there's a familiarity there. They're very comfortable with who's getting into their car. The passenger's comfortable because they know who their driver is. It's a good experience all the way around. So they truly are creating their own book of business using this software, and creating their own book of business with the repeat passengers.
I love that. I remember doing that back in like the taxi cab days. You had a taxi driver you connected with who was in your area a lot, and they would give you, their personal cell, and you would text them and they would come pick you up. So it's cool that you've taken something that, used to be, more common that hasn't really been since rideshare came up and brought it back.
Now, one thing on that note, I don't want to interrupt. First off, we forbid cash rides. We forbid them to use another app to get a passenger there and then cancel a trip and go over to rides. We forbid that. That's unethical. We would never want them to do something like that. They can't put their cell phone numbers on the cards. We let them put first name, last initial. If somebody says, how can I get you later? They're going to get a card that may say, rides, no surge pricing, whatever. And the person's name, first name, last initial, and the QR code or whatever. Or for future trips, if you want to use me, that type of deal. So we want to make sure that 100% of these rides are going through the app, because we cover the insurance and all the tracking capabilities. And we monitor, just like any other rideshare, we track the entire route. I mean, we know every turn they make on the route. We want to make sure that all stays on the app and they're not doing things off book. So that is one of the requirements, is that they go ahead and have it like that.
So in the monthly, so you charge drivers, I think it's $100. Is it always $100 subscription fee? Does it vary based on market? How did you land on that number?
Well, it varies on markets. Bigger markets where there's a lot more to choose from, it's gonna have a little bit higher subscription fee, considering that's the only many rides is bringing in. We're not out to make a bazillion bucks by any means. We're just, we want to make a good living. We want the drivers to make a good living. So certain markets are less, like Corpus Christi, Texas. It's $55 down there. I think Lubbock, Texas is $55. There's just, there's a lot less passengers there, a lot less going on for those drivers. So, we felt like it was fair. Some markets will be higher. Right now, across the board, they're all going to be $100. We usually start out the first month free. And then while we're building the brand and stuff, we'll do first month free, second month in most markets, they're going to 25 and then working up to 50, 75, and then 100. So the driver actually is getting 5 months of driving before they ever pay that first full $100 subscription, which is very, as we get busier, that may change. It may get, a free month and then, half or something. But, as we're building the name, we're trying to be fair to the drivers. Some markets that are quite a bit larger, like Las Vegas, it's probably going to be a little bit more, because the drivers out there, just like, it's just nonstop, back and forth. So it really is market dependent.
We've done a ton of research with drivers and their pay preferences, and one of the things that comes up is pay transparency as well. Are they able to, how are you handling that? Are they able to see how much they're going to make per ride? Can you talk a little bit about pay transparency?
Oh yeah, that's kind of it's kind of hokey, but it's real. No smoke, no mirrors. I mean, literally, the big thing right now is passengers ask the rideshare drivers, how much did you make on this? Or the driver will ask, how much did you pay on this? And the numbers are so far apart. Everybody just gasps like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. I paid this much. And so we decided for full transparency, the driver and the passenger get the same invoice, identical. The left column shows everything the passenger paid and where it went. It shows the airport fee, or if there was taxes or whatever, it shows everything they paid with a total at the bottom. And the middle column shows what the driver got out of that trip. And then if there was airport fees or taxes, it's in the right column, and they see the exact same invoice. Always see the same invoice. Yeah, and on the same sense too, we want drivers to take trips that make sense to them. If a passenger, we say we don't give them the trips, it's actually passengers asking for the trips. I had someone recently say, oh, you guys gave me a trip that was like 18 miles away and the person wanted to go 2 blocks and was going to, I said, let me confirm, we don't give you those trips. That's your passenger standing out there at a curb going, I really need a ride. And they requested it, and our software basically sent it to the closest driver, which happened to be you. We're not giving you those. We're not steering those. We don't have an algorithm that says, well, you took a 15-mile away trip last time for pickup, so we're going to start feeding you all those, junky trips. We're not going to do that. It's literally, the other drivers that were closer were on trips already, so it didn't go to them. So we do have full transparency on the trip. In other words, it will pop up and say, you have a trip request. You are X number of miles and minutes from the pickup spot. When you get to the pickup spot, you are X number of miles and minutes to the destination, and here's how much money you're going to make. And right now we're giving the drivers a full 30 seconds to look at this. We're not cutting them short, going to make it quick, decide quick, or, So right now that's going to change as we get more drivers, maybe down to 15 seconds. But right now we show them everything about the trip, because if it doesn't make sense for them, they need to decline the trip. We do not monitor acceptance rates. It's their business. They need to do what makes sense for them. And if they continually drive 15 miles to do a 3-mile trip, they're losing money. They should not take those trips. I would rather send a passenger a notification says, unfortunately, the driver's not available this time. Try again later, but the drivers need to make money, and they don't need to feel pressure to take trips to places that don't make sense for them.
And I think the big rideshare companies are starting to go back to that model and actually provide more transparency where they weren't for a long time. So it seems like you're ahead of the game there.
Well, like I said, we listen to the drivers. I mean, it's so simple. Here's the deal. If the driver is my customer and I really need to listen to them and please them to make this business successful, when we do onboardings at the meeting, we have a printout that has all their information on it. And when drivers say, hey, could you do this, or will it do this, or whatever, we make notes. And I take it back to our tech team and say, look, a driver today asked me if we can do this, or can we do that, or whatever. This app will never be done. If you ever hear I say, well, we're finally done, just shoot me, because that means I quit, and we'll never quit. But there's always so much improvement, and there's always drivers having input, and there's always ways to make things better. So we'll continue to do that. I mean, we're adding new features all the time right now. We've got a big release that's probably going to come out in 3 weeks. That is going to be huge for these drivers trying to do their own business, like I said, in their car using the software. And everything. So we'll continue to do that. I mean, we have a list a mile long. If we can get started on that list right now, which we have, it's going to take us years to actually get all the stuff implemented we want to do. So it's all about listening to the drivers and doing what they need us to do.
I mean, it's such solid, no matter what business you're building, listening to your customers should be at the forefront. Any advice, like it sounds like you're talking to them during onboarding. Are there other ways that you're gathering feedback from drivers on a consistent basis that would maybe apply to other businesses?
Well, you know what? Right now, first off, I've never been afraid to take phone calls from my customers, and drivers are my customers. Right now, I think I'm approaching about 400 drivers that have my personal cell phone number, and they use it. They use it a lot.
I bet.
I'm usually talking to them till 12 o'clock, depending on which coast they're on, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. I cherish my 3.5 hours of sleep I get every night. And usually by 5 o'clock in the morning, people on the East Coast are calling me again. But that's the nature of the beast. That's what we're going to do. So really listening to them and being available. There's so many ways they can get a hold of me. They can call my cell phone. They can text me. They can actually send in a ticket. Our ticket system, which is on the app and on the website, they can send in a ticket, and that will come to me as well. And I'm very connected. I'm very, very connected to the drivers. Like I said, we have to be successful here. So I think one of the big things that I fall back to, referring back to my medical equipment company, when I started that back in 1989, my philosophy was, my grandmother was elderly then, is every piece of medical equipment we put out has to be good enough to go on my grandmother. Every piece. If it doesn't look good enough for her, it doesn't look good enough for anybody. We treat every customer, and I taught all of my staff over the years in all of our locations, every piece of this equipment is going out on your grandmother. Now you make a call. Is this ready to go out on your grandmother? And so we had a 27-year run, and we ended on our terms. We did hospice the last 10 years, and it kind of took its toll dealing with hospice. And so after 10 years of strictly hospice, it was time to change. We needed to lighten the mood a little bit. But we still do that same mentality here. Every driver, would I want my wife or daughters in that car? Is this driver been vetted enough for me to feel comfortable putting my daughters or my wife in the car? And that's the way we look at everything. So
a lot of the research we've done has also been around like speed of pay for drivers. Can you talk about like how quickly are drivers getting compensated for the rides they're doing, and why or why not is that important to them?
Right now it stinks. Right now the company we use, because we were the newbies and we had trouble finding a company, because we don't touch the money. Literally it goes from a passenger's credit card to the processor. They do the splits. They send, the part to the surcharge account for the airport or for the taxes or whatever. And then they send the rest to the driver. They do nightly sweeps, and then they run it as an ACH, which goes to the person's bank. Well, then, it was run at, midnight on a Wednesday. So it gets processed, and it finally makes it to the bank sometime Thursday afternoon. And then they decide, well, they didn't come in before the line. The next thing you know, it's getting put off. The company we're in the process of working with will be doing more of an instantaneous thing with a debit card, a debit card type of deal, where the money's more instantly readily available. They could take the debit card to the pump or the grocery store, or go online and transfer it to their account. So right now, technically, credit card companies sweeping every night, but the ACH system really slows that down. And so we're aggressively working to fix that.
So it sounds like it's feedback you've heard feedback from the drivers, and you're implementing a solution.
Well, that was one I didn't have to hear feedback on. I'm going, if I was driving and I did a drive on Tuesday, I would hope by Wednesday the money's in my account. And then we're finding out from, in the real world, oh, we did a drive on Tuesday and maybe it'll hit on Friday. That's not acceptable. So once again, caring about the drivers, we learned, some drivers, they're retired. They just do it because they want to do it. They want to, there's a wide range of people driving rideshare. Some people are driving to buy formula for their babies. They need, or their electricity is going to get cut off on Friday if they don't go out. There's some desperate, times for all of us. And so getting drivers paid quicker is very, very important to me. And that's why I took it upon myself immediately when we realized how slow this was going, that we need to do something better. So we've been working with this other company. I think we're pretty close to getting that done. So.
What are you doing to recruit drivers? I mean, obviously you have a compelling differentiated message. Is there a lot of word of mouth? Are you spending marketing dollars to recruit drivers? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, it's kind of, we're doing very little. I mean, that's what's so amazing about this. We started out, this was going to be a little mom and pop thing close to Austin, Texas, way back. And it just started growing. And can you come here? Can you go there? And so what we've done is we've licensed out, regions that are just not feasible for us to go to. And most of them we are, but a lot of them we've licensed out to individuals, friends, family, whoever, and say, okay, that's your region. And they go in and they do their social media marketing and what they need to do in their region. But what's amazing to me is there's such a desperate need for change in this industry. Drivers are seeking us out. I get about 8 inquiries a day from everywhere across the country, even to Hawaii. I can't wait to go there. But anyway, every day, about eight to 10 inquiries every day. Buffalo, New York. When can you come to, Arkansas? When can you come to whatever? And so they're seeking us out. And now how they're finding out about us, I don't know. I mean, it's the magic of social media and the internet and all that stuff. We're just doing some basic social media posting and some boosting and some things like that right now. Nothing too aggressive, which we will be in the very near future, starting to be more intentional on getting the word out in different places and stuff like that. So I think that's coming shortly. But right now we've just been growing organically and it's been going amazingly well.
You mentioned, new different geographic markets. How do you decide when to open up a new market? And is it because you're starting to hear demand from drivers or customers in the area? Can you talk about that?
100%. That's an easy one. We are going where the drivers are asking us to go. And the ones who are yelling the loudest get, squeaky wheel. Charleston, South Carolina, for instance, honestly, I had no real intention of anytime soon looking at Charleston. Through the word of mouth in Atlanta, our head driver, I would call him, in Charleston, reached out to me and said, when are you coming to Charleston? It's like, I hate to say it. Let me look at my map. I'm not really sure, but I said, let's see what the driver interest is in Charleston. And he said, can I create a Facebook page for drivers? Absolutely. Knock yourself out. Oh my gosh. Immediately hundreds of drivers on this Facebook page going, yes, where do we sign up? How do we do this? One of the real unique things about our model is because we are such a smaller operation. We don't have people making $40 million a year. We don't have a room full of, 100 programmers. We just don't have that overhead that most of the companies have. We have zero debt. We're not indebted to anybody. We've self-funded the whole thing. And so, we're not paying a lot of debt service and stuff. So we can go into a market. It doesn't matter if we have 20 drivers or 2,000 drivers. We can be successful in that market. If it's not enough drivers, we can put a pop-up to passengers that says, hey, we're unlimited drivers here. Be patient, give us a try. If it doesn't work, obviously go back to who can get you there the quickest. But yeah, the driver interest is definitely what is getting our attention. So what we do is usually we go into a new market, create a driver Facebook page or let a driver do that. We don't monitor those pages. That's their page. And they can start creating the buzz. And then the person in charge of that can report back, go, look, I got 100 people that are ready to sign up. Come on, And so, all right, let's put it on the calendar. So we're not going out and seeking, deciding where should we go next. They're telling us pretty much where we should go next.
So you're building up the supply side first, you're getting drivers. And then how are you having customers find you? How are people learning about rides who need rides?
That's the eighth wonder of the world. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know how, I mentioned that I got a message from Madison, Wisconsin, 2:00 in the morning, one morning. And the guy said, y'all were just on the Stephen Colbert show. And it's like, really? No way. It's like, sure enough. So he was doing a segment on rideshare and talked about the big companies. And then next thing you know, he's talking about rides. Our emblem's on his screen and he's talking good things about it. Of course, he has to take a joke, which I thought was hilarious. I actually commented back to him that I thought it was great that he said we needed to keep a little money for spell check because of the way we spelled our name. But that's good press. We like it. But I have no idea how they learned. I have no idea how Bloomberg News called me to do an interview. I have no idea. It's not something we're intentionally going out and saying, "Hey, look at us. Can you put us on your deal?" People are reaching out to us. There's some of the national companies that we're talking to right now, like Gridwise, which is an amazing. They're like QuickBooks for rideshare. They're absolutely amazing. We're talking with them right now. There's some national dash cam video companies that have reached out to us that we're working with right now to maybe make it more accessible for drivers to have dash cam videos for their own safety and for the passenger safety as well. So how that's happening, I wish I could tell you. It's just literally, I wake up every day and there's somebody new saying, "Hey, you got our attention. What can you do?" So it's very unique, very cool.
Well, when you have a story to tell, right? And sometimes, as a marketer, I know how important that is. And when you're disrupting a market and you have a different position to take than these giants, it really kind of breaks through the noise, which is amazing. So you mentioned you don't have rooms full of engineers, you don't have much of a marketing, or like what team do you have right now? Like, talk me through who runs Wridz.
Well, for the most part, me and my wife run the company. Our son, I brought in one of my sons. He's our CFO. He's my link to the tech department. I'm probably the most untechnical person on this podcast right now. In fact, I'd almost put money on it. I'm just not a technical guy. I'm an end user guy. I'm like, customer service guy, but how we get from point A to point Z, I'm not that guy. So we have my son who's over the tech department. Then we've got quite a few tech developers that actually work for us. We've got a program side developer that's over the programmers in the programming department, and we've got the app side developer that does that side as well. And we're growing that as we need. As we expand, and we know we're going to hit more stumbling blocks, and we want to expedite getting some of the new features put into the app. So I know we're going to expand that as we go, but we're doing it at a pace where we're not, like I said, we're not going into debt. We're not, we open a region and there's 20 or 30 drivers on. We're thrilled. That's 20 or 30 drivers that can promote themselves and promote this platform in their area and do better for themselves. And we're thrilled about that. It's about their success and everything. Marketing. We just brought on a person who does specializes in social media marketing. She's out in California, and she's kind of keeping up with our Rides Facebook page and Instagram and some stuff like that. And then we'll start doing some more boosted posts and more paid advertising through stuff like that. We'll probably reach out, maybe do some segments, maybe some radio segments and things like that. So it's just, like I said, we're not a huge company, and it's growing at a great pace, and we're thrilled with what's going on. So no need to, go and start handing out the 10 cup, asking for people to donate and invest, because we just don't, we're not in that position. So.
Yeah, it's such an interesting. I talk to a lot of founders, and to bootstrap, to take VC funding, fundraising, especially right now, the climate is really tough. So if you can make a business work, and you can, like you said, create a good business for your family, for your drivers, then you're onto something. And it's great that you can have that and be happy there.
Yeah, and we have actually turned down VC money. We've actually had quite a few approaches that said, "Hey, where do we sign up?" And I've talked to them a little. I just need to talk to them a little bit and realize some of their business ethics and stuff, and the way they look at things like that, is just like, it's not a fit. And so we've literally turned down millions of dollars in VC capital because we don't need it. No, right now we don't need it. I knock on wood, I hope we don't need it in the future, but right now we don't need it. And so why go that route? So I think creating this company like we are organically and growing it slow enough, and it may take a year or two to get up to really feel like we're in our zone, but doing it debt free, I think is one of the most important things we can do.
I'd be curious, obviously there's giant players in this space. Do you get a lot of like naysayers? People are like, "Oh, how can you ever compete with the Ubers and Lyfts of the world?" What do you tell them, or how do you react to that as the founder of this business?
Oh yeah, I literally, it's not as much now as it was in the beginning, but I get that every day. Literally every day, and I just explained to them, look, here's what we're about. we're listening to drivers. We created this company because there was such an uproar from drivers saying it needs to be fixed. We're offering drivers exactly what they're asking for. But if it's not for them, it's not for them. Just keep walking. No hard feelings. We get some that go on social media and decide, oh, we're just going to be, fly in the ointment. We're just going to stir the pot. And we just politely tell them about our company, why we're different. But at the end of the day, we tell them, if it's not for you and you don't feel like it's, going to work, then just move on. Stick with what you got. I mean, obviously you're happy with the situation like it is. So by all means, stay there. And we've had quite a few people that started out with that mentality of, oh, this will never work and everything. And they've become these amazing drivers using the Wridz platform and making tons of money. And then they post back on our Facebook page, well, look what I did this week. I could have paid my subscription for a year off of what I did this week alone, And so it's showing success. And, but we're always going to have people who want to doubt. I've, heard through the grapevine, some of the people who are the biggest, loudest doubters are people that wouldn't have been able to pass our background or drug test. So that's fine. Let them stay wherever they're at. We're fine with that. We're content with that. So like I said, we're not looking for all the drivers. We're just, 30 or 40% of the top drivers. I'm not saying we'd ever get that many drivers, but just we're looking for that cream of the crop, best drivers, best passengers as well. We don't tolerate passengers being rude or belligerent or disrespectful to drivers. You can't do, in our world, there's too much of that going on, and people get away with it. They just say what they want when they want. They can offend people, and there's no accountability for that. So if we have a driver that says, look, I had a passenger in my car, they were drunk, they were belligerent, they were rude, they called me names or whatever, it's easy to flip a switch and make a passenger not be able to use Wridz app. We have no problem doing that. Drivers deserve respect. And you're in their car and they're doing you a service by taking you where you need to go. So you need to respect them. So that's another thing about us is it's very, technically easy. If a passenger's not playing nice, then we can just make sure they don't play at all.
I love that. On the passenger side, is the pricing for them comparable to what a bigger rideshare company would charge them for a ride? Is there a premium because they know they're getting a little bit more, maybe safety measures, things like that? Can you speak to that?
Right now, we're staying very competitive. In fact, we're trying to stay slightly less than the other companies where we can. Now, one of the things we're seeing is there's this all over the map pricing. And for instance, in Lubbock, Texas, we have a lady who uses a rideshare to go every day to the Amazon plant where she works, or the Amazon warehouse where she works. And one of the companies, she said it might be $7 on Monday. And then on Tuesday, it might be $11 for the same trip. And then on Wednesday, it might be $10. And then on Thursday, she said it's all over the map. And she's trying to set a budget. She lives on a budget. She's trying to, how do you budget when you have that? So we find the most comparable, competitive price, that sweet spot, and that's our price, okay? And it's going to be $9 or $8 on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, give or take a few cents in case there was a traffic jam, but it's not going to vary very much. So we try to stay very competitive on that. What we've done is we took away the surge. There's no surge pricing on ours. And the reason we did that was here in Austin, there's Circuit of the Americas, F1 track out east of town. And passengers would get there for $40 for an event. But once they're there, they're held hostage. Now it's $120 to get home, an $80 surge. And this is very routine, regular. This happens all the time. So we're going, okay, we don't want to do that. If it costs you $40 to get there, we want it to be $40 to get you home because we know that drivers don't particularly take a lot of that surge home. That's going into, bigger, deeper pockets than the driver's pockets in most cases. They'll get some of it, but not all. So what we did was add a perk. So a passenger can go in and go, well, this company wants to charge me $80 extra, and that's just robbery. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to put a perk of $20 or $30 or $40 on my driver's side, on the ride side. Driver keeps 100% of that. So I guarantee a $20 perk on a Wridz app on that trip is going to make them more than an $80 surge on the other app. So driver comes out great. They make all that. The passenger comes out great because they just saved, $40 or $60 and everything. And so it will let them know in situations where it's a little higher demand. If they're not getting a driver, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you might try adding a perk so that you can get a driver. But it's going to be less. It's always going to be less that they put on than what a surge price would be. But they control that. Passengers control that. They get to say, hey, I'm willing to pay this much extra because it's busy, but I'm willing not to pay what that other company wants. That's not fair. It's not reasonable. So that's one of the things that we've added on the passenger side to be more competitive. Like I said, our prices, we try to stay at or below the others. There's fluctuations. We can't guarantee. We were trying to say, we'll be always cheaper or 10% cheaper. We can't do that because they're all over the map. There's no way. So we say consistent. We're consistent pricing.
I love it. That's super cool. I would love just to know, like, the broader rideshare industry. Do you have any predictions on sort of what's next for that industry? Anything in the next couple of years that you think will really change or disrupt the industry?
Well, I'm certainly not. I don't consider myself to be an expert on the field by any means. I mean, I've done research and I listen, and my ears are always open, and I always see stuff. I see situations where companies, they go public. Now they're answering to shareholders, and they're still answering to their drivers, and they're still answering to their passengers. You have to be fair enough to your passengers so they'll take the trip, and you have to divide that money between corporate and the driver and the shareholders and stuff. And they kind of get in a little bit of a predicament where, how do you keep everybody happy? You're going to tick somebody off. You're either going to be too high a price for your passenger, or you're not going to give your drivers enough, or your shareholders are going to be mad because they didn't make money. I think those right there, I think, are going to be issues for some of the big companies to have to deal with. The only thing I can see is having to raise rates, and I think that probably could be happening slowly. I don't know, but if a driver doesn't see more of that money when the rates go up, I think they'll lose drivers in the droves. I think the drivers will just, they've smartened up and they realize, hey, we're the one putting the gas in the car and changing the oil and putting the tires on the car, and we're out here spending 8 to 10 hours a day doing this, and we're only making 30% of what the passenger's paying, and they're doing all the heavy lifting. And I think for the big companies, they're going to have to come to that realization, figure out how to restructure that and redirect the money back to the people doing the work. You can't have the people doing all the work and getting the least amount of the money. That just doesn't make sense. So anyway, I think that's my prediction is for what it's worth. I think that's going to be a big change in the rideshare industry in the next year or two, because at some point this is coming to a boiling point. And either shareholders or drivers, one, are going to boil over. It's going to pop, and there's going to be a significant change. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens.
Do you keep up to date on the worker classification debate? If drivers should be 1099 versus W-2 or some sort of hybrid classification? Any thoughts or predictions on how that's going to land, or where you think it should land?
Well, we structured our company, our platform, to be more in the software world than in the rideshare world. We truly are. We don't benefit from a driver doing a drive in any way whatsoever. We don't make a penny. So I think some of the classifications I've read from the Labor Department coming down have been, one of the criteria to go 1099 or employee is, do you benefit from the work that person's doing? And if the answer is yes, that throws them pretty strongly into the employee category, not in the contract labor category. So we've been very, very careful. Rides drivers using the Rides platform, they're independent. They're truly independent. They work when they want. They don't work when they don't want to work. They make all the money that can be made legitimately off of that trip. They're making all that money. And so I think we've really positioned ourselves very well to stay strongly in the contract labor category. Now, we do want to eventually add links and connections where they can get, maybe if they, they're going to make a lot. And on average, I'm going to say drivers are seeing 75 to 100% more on the same trip, mile for mile, on the Rides platform over other platforms. So now they have extra money, hopefully. They maybe don't have to drive as much they can spend more time with their family, or if they just are workaholics, they want to drive, then maybe they can take that money and, have healthcare insurance or have, investment capability. So we're working with a company that as we roll this out, we'll have those things available, telemed, teledoc type stuff, things like that, and actually full blown healthcare insurance. Now, not through us, but we will provide the link, and then that'll go to that company, and they can actually help they even have investment counselors saying, what, if it's time to start that college fund for your child or whatever. They have people that will be there for the drivers to talk about these things. And so I think teaching drivers, you should be proud of what you're doing. You're hustling, you're getting all the money you can get for it. And you need to think about your future, and maybe investments or whatever. Take care of yourself, take care of your family with insurance and things like that. So there's a few things like that we really want to implement that I think would be helpful for them.
I always like to end on the question of what's next for Rides. Can you give us a little sneak peek? What does the next, 6 months, year, couple of years have in store for the company?
Yeah, we're just going where the wind blows us. No, we have a considerable number of markets that are on the fringe waiting to open, that we're ready to move forward on. Every week we're working on more permitting in different states. We do carry permits in every state we're in. We do carry at least the insurance required by the state. In most cases, we carry more insurance for the drivers than is required because we have a little higher limitations for them and stuff. So we do have a number of locations. I would say probably between now and the end of June, we're probably looking at another 8 to 10 locations that'll launch that I've already got on the schedule that we're working on permitting for and stuff. And that's not to say any locations that, that come up in the meantime that are people are just like, hey, we're ready to have you here. But, we've got some larger markets that'll be coming up very shortly. The rest of Texas, for the most part, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, those will be coming online in the next few weeks and everything. So, the next 6-12 months for Wridz, we'll just kind of see what happens. Where do people need us? Where do they want us at? And like I said, we don't have to have a bazillion drivers to make it successful. So we can look at markets that, that need our service with just a handful of drivers. We can make it happen.
Wonderful. Well, this has been such a delightful conversation, Steve. Honestly, love your story, love the background, and just really appreciate you being here and sharing the Wridz story.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate you letting me share the Wridz story very much.
And where can people find you if they want to learn more about Wridz or they want to learn more about Steve? What's the best place to do that?
They can go to the website. They can message. There's a place to message on there. I see all those tickets. So if somebody wants to message through there or whatever, there's lots of different ways. They can actually go on our social media and the social media person say, hey, Steve, here's a question for you or whatever. So there's a lot of ways they can get a hold of me. So
yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate you being here.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. I appreciate it.
This podcast was brought to you by Every. We work with gig companies, marketplaces, delivery businesses, and more to pay their workers fast. You can learn more at every.com.